All right, I'm live, and thank you, Rolf Peterson. I guess I am late. I have to admit, I'm kind of blown away because Viva Freiend ended a little bit earlier than I expected. So I was like, whoa, oh, they're done. I'm not having that slight hangover. So I'm here, hoping folks roll in. I was hoping that there might be some kind of crazy handoff on. Unfortunately, there was not. How is everybody doing tonight? God, it's crazy. The numbers are going up and down, 31, 49, 21. Why are my numbers going down versus up? What is up with that? That is definitely not fun. Let me see here. Okay, 31 if I look at YouTube. Hey, Ziggy Shrugs, how are you doing? How's everybody doing? I feel like I should do this old school, like News with Booze, and ask everybody, what are you drinking? What's going on? How are you doing? I heard a rumor. Somebody said they're waiting for Legal Mindset. Oh, you're working on a project for Legal Mindset. Oh, that's awesome. Cool, Ziggy. Back up to 41. Good. Love to see people here. On that note, I'm curious. I heard that Twitter got sold. Is that true? Anybody hear that rumor? That crazy rumor? Go figure, right? And on that note, I actually put down, this is my Twitter handle. And I never really promoted Twitter prior to this point, but I would love to see in the chat, and you could do ones if you have, twos if you haven't, but let's just say a one. If you are not on Twitter or were not on Twitter, have you rejoined or are you considering rejoining it? Please go ahead and say if there's a one. And I'm asking this because there are a lot of questions about, oh, somebody's talking about the smokety smoke. I've got some smoke going on in the background. You guys like that? I have other effects that I can do too. Like I can have a nebula. Ooh. Space. The final frontier. Or another nebula. I don't have a term for that. I can have white smoke. This one's so subtle that you can't really tell anything's happening. I had this one, which I thought was really cool, but somebody wrote in and said that it was bothering them, that it gave them kind of a motion sickness, so I'm not going to keep doing that. Got an abstract background, but I will go back to the smoky background. What do you guys like? And let me see. Oh, there are some ones in here. Awesome. So we are actually seeing people who are rejoining Twitter. I thought there might be. And three, wait and see. You know, I can go for that, Rolf. I can definitely relate. We have hopes for Elon Musk, but you know, it's funny. Once it gets all done, all the dust settles, let's see what actually happens. And Allison, I was just asking everyone to do a one in the chat if they either have rejoined Twitter or they're thinking about rejoining Twitter, because I don't know if you've seen that the Twitter numbers are kind of going crazy right now.
Mm-hmm. I keep seeing people talking about gaining like 300,000 followers. It's something ridiculous. I can't say that the same has happened for me. I sure wish that this similar phenomenon would happen on YouTube, because I keep going in the opposite direction on YouTube. So well, nothing. That's what I tweeted today, that nothing has changed on YouTube. So I lost 200 subscribers. Thank you. Because that's what everyone's like, thank you.
You know what? I actually lost like 30 subscribers on this channel since yesterday. I don't know what happened. So everybody, hint, you know, like Allison said, you need to subscribe now, and you can also subscribe to Allison. But I have gained tens of subscribers on Twitter or followers.
Maybe I've gained like 20. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I'm not super controversial on Twitter, so I don't see myself changing much on Twitter. I've never really gotten into the whole sock it to people in 30 characters or less kind of.
I don't think it's that. You know, it depends. It can be that way. There are those who do it, the Michael Malices or whatever, are snarky, but there are others who are fine. You know, like Twitter is fantastic for finding articles and material and things like that.
That's how I use it. Yeah, for sure.
And as anybody, okay, I'm going to go really old school. Have you ever used Flipboard?
Mm-mm.
Flipboard is an app, and God, it's probably almost a decade old now. And it formats like stories. So like if somebody tweets out that they wrote a story, it'll just, write whatever they said, and then it'll format the story in a magazine format. And
Oh,
it
that's
works really
cool.
well on an iPad or whatever. So when I first did Twitter, I just kind of was using it as a way to have a custom magazine on Flipboard. And then I forgot about
Okay.
it, but I've rediscovered it lately, and it's kind of cool. But anyway, folks, those who are joining or whatever, feel free to follow me. I can get many, many tens more, I hope. I guess that might be nice. And I put out every time there's a show that's going to be on, things like that. And I do want to see it grow because it's a reward for the possibility of free speech. Like, I want it to be such a huge groundswell that everybody looks and they go, oh, wait a minute. Maybe that is a good idea to allow free speech. I don't have, much confidence. And that's a theme of the show, is that people are already, crying like children, namely the Twitter lawyer. Did you, speaking of her, did you happen to watch a couple years ago? I don't even know anymore. It might have been 3 or 4 years ago, with Tim Pool on Joe Rogan with Jack Dorsey and her.
Yes, I did see that. Mm-hmm.
And
is that who Elon Musk tweeted about? Now everyone's upset. Okay. Mm-hmm.
That is exactly who it is. My apologies. And shut up, Siri. Anyway, yes, that is exactly who he did tweet about. And while we're on that, let's just open with that as the first story. Let me find my magical tab that seems to have floated away. And voila. All right. Elon Musk, earlier today, God forbid he did this, but he said that Twitter suspending the New York Post. By the way, people, you'll notice that on the news, they call New York Post a tabloid. Have you noticed that they always say the tabloid?
Yeah.
Now, why is that ridiculous? Did you know that New York Post is the oldest actual continuously running newspaper in the nation? And it was established by Alexander Hamilton.
I'm looking it up right now, but I believe that tabloid is not, we use it derogatorily, but it doesn't, the definition doesn't actually mean anything negative. I'm looking it up right now. A newspaper having pages half the size of those of a standard newspaper. That's it. Typically popular in style and dominated by headlines, photographs. Okay, and then this has sensational stories. What qualifies as a tabloid? It really seems that it's more about the size of it and condensed news, including photographic matter. But it doesn't,
pretty and flashy. And
say that again?
Yeah, it's pretty and flashy and smaller and easier to handle, which is great. I'm sure it was established as that, but now the Inquirer was a tabloid format, and therefore it became a tabloid and all the others. So they do use it as a pejorative.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, but it's funny because the New York Post, remember when I lived in New York, we liked reading it when I worked at Fox News Channel. Well, because it was one of the only papers that gave you a different perspective, but they always had like the funniest headlines and the best writing. Their writing was always just funny. So
which is
and it wasn't like it was untrue. They were just more creative than
and by the way, in fairness, like the Inquirer, known tabloid, is not always wrong. Remember the John Edwards love baby? That was the Inquirer.
Yeah.
They broke that. The Inquirer has broke some major stories. One of the big differences between
like TMZ and TMZ too has done that.
One of the big differences with the Inquirer and other newspapers, though, and why they fight is Inquirer will pay sources for a story. And traditional news outlets that's verboten. Oh,
but they still do that. I know that they're like they'll I don't know, like for instance, the biggest interview, the one that everyone's trying to get, like, I think Kyle Rittenhouse is probably because went to Tucker because it would make political sense, like, or at least he was one of the few, Fox was one of the few outlets that didn't drag him through the mud. But but a story of that size and like a person of that exposure, they are all figuring out ways to pay. And it could just be like, we'll put you up in New York, we'll put your family up for a week, we'll get you a rental car. It may not be
fly you in. We'll pay all your travel, and here's a couple tickets that fell off the truck that you could go see what blah blah blah.
Yeah,
whereas the Inquirer gives cash. The Inquirer just cuts a check and they say, you got a story, here's 50 grand, here's 100 grand, whatever. You got a photograph we like, here's some cash. And
I heard that Amanda Knox, when she decided to talk about how she was suing somebody in Hollywood over the movie they're making about her, that there was payment that went on behind the scenes for who she gave her story to first, too, from the mainstream. Oh, really? I don't know if it's true. Can't confirm, but.
Okay. Well, now to continue on with the Elon Musk article. Now, he pointed out that that was inappropriate. Now, Allison, you're the professional here. That's why you're here. You're actually the professional.
Former professional.
Is it evil or rotten to say that it was inappropriate to suppress a story that was in fact true?
There's nothing inappropriate about saying that.
But here we go. The hit squads and the screaming is so fast that we've already got Quartz. Now, Quartz is kind of a newer, but it's still definitely, lefty-ish outlet that plays like they're down the middle. They're writing an article. Elon Musk already broke his agreement with Twitter. It's not even been a day yet, Allison, and he's broken his agreement. Oh, my Lord. So what did he break? So we have a genius here, RM, Fifth Circuit, whoever this is. And he's saying that Elon has agreed that he is to not insult Twitter or say bad things. Well, now define that. Now I've got Nate the lawyer coming on, and I might circle back to this, by the way, later, because this to me is kind of similar to defamation and questions of that. But when he said it was inappropriate, wasn't that the headline? Inappropriate. Yeah, incredibly inappropriate. To suppress a story that was in fact true. So inappropriate. Is this a personal attack, in your opinion, of a journalist, or is it a statement about the publication and its standards?
Are you asking me that question?
I'm asking for real, yes.
Wait, say it one more time.
Is it inappropriate? Okay, is this statement that it's inappropriate or incredibly inappropriate a personal attack on somebody who made a decision, or is it a statement on the policy and procedures of an organization?
Right. Yeah, I think it's a statement of policy. That's how I interpret it.
Well, there you go. Okay, I'm going to bring up an example of this and why I think that they're trying really, really hard. This is a saying that was before my time, so definitely way before your time, because you're extremely younger. I don't know if you've ever heard about that. Avis ran an advertising campaign in 1962. And the advertising campaign was, we're number 2. So we try harder. So think about it for a second there. That is actually the whole campaign. So they insulted their own company as part of an advertising campaign. But then they said, hey, we try harder. Now, would that be seen as malfeasance? Because they say, hey, we're number 2. We're not number 1. They were actually trashing their company. Another example is, Domino's said that they changed their formula. They have a new sauce. So Elon Musk telling Twitter or telling the world that it was inappropriate. Is that a breaking the agreement? Is that talking trash? Is that slandering somebody?
First off, I'm kind of surprised that this deal exists. It worries me a little bit that deal exists, that he's not allowed to, because it's just like no hate speech, no
Right.
criticism. Like it's the same thing. It's all totally up to
Yeah, it's like he's
interpretation.
under a Twitter, umbrella. It's like, oh, we're going to suspend your account if you say something we don't like. It's like, oh, more of the same that they've always had, part of the deal.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know.
I personally think it's ludicrous, and I want to point out another thing. I mean, if this isn't like distant memory, but it is a few years old now, because ever since 2016, everybody turned upside down and said, "Oh, never mind, we don't have any kind of integrity whatsoever." Do you remember New York Times had this individual? They had a title, as a role. It's called the Ombudsman or Ombudsman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what were they about? What was that about? That whole individual and their role?
I don't know. I'm not as familiar with that because we never had that in TV news. I guess the way that I understood it was supposed to be some kind of balance in, objectivity for these newspapers, like the New York Times. But I don't really quite know. I
Like
never worked in that environment.
It was like an oversight board for the paper. So an example is, if Twitter had an ombudsman, they would say the paper got it wrong when they did the story about fill in the blank. And that would be the purpose of it, to, look at a story later. Like there are some great stories. Like, did you know that the New York Times in like 1939 said that Poland invaded Germany? This is the truth. So that would be a case that the ombudsman, in the middle of World War II, would say, that story wasn't exactly accurate, and we probably need to explore what we were doing there, and we're writing it out. So it's almost like a retraction committee within the paper who would visit and then write editorial on what processes happened or things like that. It was a good thing. But then something happened in 2016. And New York Times actually changed their policy and said, we're not even going to bother with anything. And they got rid of the ombudsman. So they quite literally did, like Google did with, don't be evil. Sorry, overlords. I know you're listening. And they shoved it way down the line. But that is a case here. So I'm making the argument, and maybe it's a stretch, but as the owner of Twitter, or soon to be owner, because technically, and thank you, Jive Turkey, ombudsman, Elon Musk is acting as the ombudsman of his organization that he will have full control of in approximately 6 months. And another spin on this, I don't know if you've seen this, is Reason wrote a nice one, which Musk replied to. One thing nice about Musk is all these things are written, and he actually does comment on Twitter to have this stuff. And it is fun. I mean, it's like, wow, okay, there's somebody who's actually involved or whatever. And here we go. If Elon Musk is targeting Twitter employees, isn't the Washington Post targeting Elon Musk?
Well, yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. Like, we talked about this yesterday. Bill and I did a show on the latest in Taylor Lorenz and how Tim Pool and the Daily Wire dude Jeremy Boring put up that billboard. I'm sure you and I are going to talk about that tonight. But
oh yes.
The thing is with her, and she's a Washington Post reporter. She focuses on influencers, as she calls them, digital influencers.
Atlantic, New York Times prior. Yeah.
Say that again?
She was in the Atlantic and New York Times prior. She's got a long history.
Yeah. Deep in the mainstream world. But she considers herself, when she targets somebody online for her exposés, she says that's journalism. When people target her and criticize her work, that's bullying. And that's how I think a lot of the people who work in sort of like establishment fields, whether that's press or tech or government, they see what they're doing as a service, and they see if you do the same thing, it's bad. What it depends on what it is, but like to her, it's journalism. For you to do the same thing, it's bullying. So in this case, it's like, no, we're doing journalism and you're targeting. You know, so it's the same idea that like we live in a world where what we're doing when we're exposing things has a public service angle to it. We're doing something good for the public. So we're not targeting. That would be mean. You know, we're exposing for the good of the public. It's what journalism is. But you on the outside, when you do something similar and you go after somebody in power like them, you're targeting. So it's just,
well, you're
they
not
see the world
accepted.
differently.
You are not acceptable. You're some weirdo in your basement, as the YouTube CEO would like to say.
Well,
You
yeah,
don't count.
you know, like Bill and I debate this a lot because he has some kind of I really don't quite understand where the line is, because he's one of those people with a line that not everybody does journalism or can do journalism. You can't, not just everybody can do journalism. And I'm like, why? You know, the way I look at it is journalism's like, it's like something you do. It's not an identity. So one day I may do journalism and another day I may do commentary, or like you, Eric, you can do journalism. What is journalism? What's reporting? You know, if you do the act of journalism, then in the moment of doing that, you're a journalist. That, you know, does it mean that you're paid full time? Do you have to be paid full time to work for an organization? Does it have to be an identity? Because I think when you define it that way, and a lot of people who are in the full-time corporate press world, they see it as an identity. And that's the problem, because they identify so much with it. Like their whole persona is wrapped up in this work, that they look at people outside of it and like, you're not a journalist. You can't be a journalist. And they'll use all these kinds of excuses, which I believe they really buy into. Like, well, you don't have an editorial board and you don't work by the same kind of ethics.
You didn't go to Columbia University.
Yeah, how do we know, like, how you got your sourcing or whatever? And also they also don't see themselves, for whatever reason, as purveyors of misinformation. They obviously, when they talk about, because I'm more skeptical of Elon buying Twitter. I have heard some pretty reasonable arguments about why this actually could be worse in the long run for surveillance, for like data mining and that kind of stuff. And so I'm not sitting here like, oh, this is going to be what everyone promises it's going to be. But the media thinks it is going to be that. So if we're just going to take the media, what they believe the narrative is, which is, oh, this is going to open it up to anybody, and it's just going to be the Wild West again.
Well, and who's the media really worried about, though? Are the media worried about those sources that are going to infiltrate or spy, because they're already doing it? See TikTok, see everything else. Or are they really more worried about people whose opinion is different than theirs that are going to infiltrate? Because they always say that he is a purveyor of evil thoughts, essentially. And I have to be so careful. What am I going to say on YouTube or the algorithm? But the fact is that they're worried about him and what he represents, that he grew up in a country that had apartheid. You know what that means. Wink, wink. You know, the media loves to talk about dog whistles. What is that but a dog whistle? If they say he grew up in a country with apartheid and wants to spread blankety blank beliefs because of being from there, that's what they're concerned. So they're not worried about any kind of government interference, which is already happening, by the way. We're already being encouraged that certain words are bad, and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram have gone right along with it, and YouTube, which you have suffered personally. So I totally get it. And I'm not totally, I'm of the mindset, and I'm curious if you're there too, that it may not be better, but what it is now is broken, and let's go for some change and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I just assume that the internet is a place where you're being watched, and I don't know. I don't know. I guess I just have a very, I have a very, I don't want to call it like a love-hate relationship with the internet, but I don't see it. I see it as kind of a necessary evil, I guess. And so I'm going to look at it more like I'm just going to continue doing what I need to do to play the game that benefits me with the most reduced cost to my, you know, safety, security, and and ability to operate, because apparently this is what I do now full time. So I have to figure out a way to be on the internet, as much as I really don't. I guess I just don't. I'm not celebrating, because I still think the internet's going to be a dark. In some ways, it's
always going to be. It's the Wild West. Quite literally, it's still the Wild West.
Like the
it's
Wild
so
West,
young.
the opposite. It's like it's a place where eventually people who speak differently, no matter who's owning it, whether it's Elon or somebody else, or there's another site that it's going to consistently be used for combing data from people, and I'm very skeptical of that. And I have to. I don't care if he takes over or what. I'm still going to probably participate in it the same way.
Well, we don't really have a choice. It's not like we're going to go build our own platform. I mean, duh. So, and on that note, I got one more tweet. Now, this one I would actually argue would be considered maybe more of an attack, even though I don't think it's an attack. It's just a statement. But again, we'll look at it. And this is referring directly to the interview that I talked about before, when Jack Dorsey was on with her on Rogan, and I forgot her name, so everybody forgive me. I just don't know it right offhand. But yeah, here's an example of the left-wing bias. We have to take context into consideration. It's the interpretation is affected by the left-wing bias. I need to see an example of that. Here's an example. And this really does sum it up very well, especially if you watch the interview. Tim Pool, I like Tim Pool. Overall, I don't always watch him, for everything or whatever, but he did a great job in that appearance with Joe Rogan. He really did go toe to toe, and he expressed elements where they were being, as he saw it, hypocritical, and they were targeting one side over the other. And I think he stated his case very, very, very well. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I thought he did a good job on that interview too. And more and more, I am starting to think that Jack Dorsey is less of the evil mastermind and more just of just some hippie guy who with a man bun or something that just didn't know what he was getting himself into. He seems like just a guy who just wants to be like, dude, just
I think he may have been. It may have been a Frankenstein's monster. Like, he may have been trapped, because he did have to report to all the Silicon Valley money and players and stuff. And keep in mind, with the second Elon Musk bought in, he had 4 times the ownership of Twitter that Jack Dorsey did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, is saying a lot. Nate.
Hey, Nate.
Hey,
Nate just got here. I'll be right back. Back.
Nate's here. You ran off Allison. How dare you, Nate? Jeez, I can't believe this. Okay, I've got you here. Defamation, Elon Musk, Twitter, mean tweets, good stuff. I told everybody I was going to probably bring this back up with you because there was
so there's been happening some defamation with Elon been happening already.
No, it's not. No. I am contextualizing things and throwing it together.
Okay,
but I'm not going to say it, but I'm just saying it's along the lines of it. Elon Musk has criticized Twitter.
Okay.
Where he stated, quote unquote, that it was highly inappropriate or incredibly inappropriate for Twitter, and I don't know if you've seen this, to suppress the Hunter Biden New York Post story.
Okay, yes.
I've seen that. Has written that he has already broke his agreement with Twitter because supposedly part of the agreement, and the chat did say that it was about tweets or something else, but it was saying that part of the agreement is he could not say mean things. He could not be
a non-disparagement agreement.
Exactly. Now I'm throwing that in with the defamation line just because we're on a defamation suit with Johnny Depp. And I'm asking you, Nate the lawyer, the Loracle. I'm going to build you up here to give even more value to your opinion. I'm asking you, is it in fact wrong, or my argument, as I was telling Allison, this is almost like the ombudsman of the New York Times, who sadly has been gone now since Trump was elected, stating that a policy or a decision by the company was incorrect or inappropriate.
Yes, essentially. But that's
what's your opinion?
But that's not a public. All right, that wouldn't be a public. Well, it all depends on like, for instance, this is a private company. Well, it's publicly traded.
No, it's not private. It will be. That's what he did.
It's publicly traded, but still, it's a when I mean private, it's not a government entity. And saying that, I would suspect there would be some fiduciary duties for non-disparagement stuff against.
Is that
Twitter.
disparagement?
Saying that they were wrong for doing what?
For suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story and throwing off and freezing the New York Post account when it in fact was true.
Is it disparaging the company?
Well, that's what they're claiming, is that he is disparaging the company, and specifically Twitter's lawyer who made the decision, by saying that was incredibly inappropriate.
This is not an easy win. This I can see this going both ways. I can see this going both ways if that's in fact the agreement. Because he's calling out the lawyer on Twitter saying that you did the wrong move.
He didn't call out the lawyer directly. He implied it because it was a Politico post about her crying about, to the board of, he lies to you, we'll do what we can, and so he commented on that, and then he said, because in the article it talked about she did make the call to block that laptop story on Twitter, and he replied to the article, the whole article, or quote tweeted, whatever, stating it was incredibly inappropriate or whatever. I've said it like 5 times. I forget all.
No, I get it. It's there's a lot, there's kind of a lot to unpack there, because on one end I can see the argument on both sides. This is why you go to court. But I'm gonna say I think they got a legitimate beef. If they're saying, hey, you're not supposed to make any of these disparaging remarks, this kind of hits right into that wheelhouse. It may not be textbook, but I think it's good enough to at least, because, well, maybe, and to help the audience, the way this generally would happen is that if you're within the company, you would tell the board or, something like that to try to move, because these are internal controls. Why did you do this? I didn't like this. I didn't like that. But the outward appearance would be everything is all right and we're all on the same page. So, I would ask you this, Eric. When was the last time that you saw a big company, let's say Coca-Cola, AT&T, whatever, T-Mobile, with somebody where their CEO said something like this? Well, I don't agree with what the company did here.
I can't remember what it has been done. I mean, I don't have it right on hand. But, I'm circling back to the Ombudsman. So you're saying that Twitter, even though it has every news source in the world and is seen as the point of news and the, quote, public square, is not relevant like the New York Times. And my analogy to the Ombudsman is completely off base, that you can't be self-critical as that role is, to say, hey, you know what? We reported the story. We went wrong. Here's our policy. And here's what's going to change because it wasn't right. Yeah.
Well, in that, if your role is to point that out, right? If that's
you're the owner.
Role,
you can point anything you want.
Yeah. No, not really, because that's the reason why, obviously, somebody's still has some interest in it, because that's the reason why he's got a problem. Right? If he fully owns it,
does he have a problem? No, I don't know if he does. I'm saying that the court says he does. I don't know if he does. I don't know if the company says he does. So I just know that people are griping, the Washington Post and courts. And of course, Washington Post is so concerned about a billionaire owning Twitter, because how can a billionaire own a company like that? It's unheard of. Oh, wait, who owns Washington Post?
Amazon. But when you
wrong. Say Jeff Bezos personally.
Oh, he owns it personally. Well, what about the all right, you said courts, right? You said courts say he's doing something. He's doing
courts. QUARTZ, not the courts, but courts.
All right. Well, I don't know. We'll see if there's no litigation or anything from it, then I don't see. This is just somebody who may be mad. But I will say this. I've been on boards before, and generally company policy is that we can't, because we're in that role, we can't make disparaging comments.
But
while members would be able to. And but again, that's a subjective opinion. Your opinion, my opinion. I don't believe it is, but I believe it's a close enough call where you can make an argument.
Okay, I'll give you another one that I think may be actually more down that line. Is this one disparaging? Elon Musk tweeted this out and is talking about her interview, the same lawyer, her interview with Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, and Jack Dorsey a few years ago.
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw it.
Mhm.
And it's stating
I saw that interview.
Okay, and this is a meme about it. Musk likes memes. He's been the first one to say that. That's why he liked Dogecoin. He even said, he goes, I like dogs and I like memes. That's why he was into Dogecoin. Here's a meme. This is definitely critical. And I would say of her specifically, because she is pictured. Here's an example of Twitter's left-wing bias. We have to take it into consideration. Twitter's interpretation is affected by the left-wing bias. I would need to see an example. Back to, here's an example. Blah, 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 blah. It's a circle. Is that disparaging?
Hey, speaking of circular logic, since Nate's here to help you, I'm going to go.
A producer's
I'm
calling.
going to go be a mom. Nate, it's great seeing you. I'm going to pass the baton. I'm going to pass the baton to you. I hope you guys have a good rest of your show. I'm solo momming it right now. And the reason I had to leave the first time was to make sure that Lily was not, she had switched the channel. She was watching a movie and I wanted to make sure she hadn't switched it to like My 600-Pound Life or something like that. So,
all right.
So yeah, I'll let you guys finish up.
All right.
Awesome. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Is this disparaging? I saw that interview. I don't think it was this as bad as they're making it seem.
No, but commenting on it and this meme.
But this meme though, I honestly, it's not good for Twitter. Again, if we're not talking about him and Twitter, if we're talking about the CEO of Coca-Cola putting out something that's like this against Coca-Cola, I don't know. I think, what does non-disparagement mean? You can't say anything bad about the company. That's what I always thought it was meaning. And if you do say something bad about the company or its policies or the way it's doing something, then you're disparaging. So
I'm not sure if criticism disparaging.
I don't know. One man's constructive criticism is one man's disparagement. I don't know. That's the nuance of it, right?
So there is nuance, and okay, so if there's nuance and it's a tie, who wins?
Well, I think the shareholder wins, right? You want to be more protective of, especially if you have people's economic interests at heart.
However, he bought the company. He's 100% of the shareholder.
But if that's the case, then why is this even an issue then?
Well, because technically it takes about 6 months. Well, one thing people don't understand is that, yes, Elon, he's buying Twitter. Everybody said, yes, signed off. It's happening, blah, blah, blah. It takes 6 months. There's nothing saying that in 5 months and 29 days that it couldn't all fall apart. It technically could. So
what I'm saying is that essentially, what we're saying is he has a non-disparagement agreement with Twitter, and we're going through particular examples of things that he said or things he's done that he's saying now that may be disparaging or people could consider disparaging. I don't know exactly what their contract says. I know the contracts that I write and the contracts that I have generally say you can't put the company into it, like it goes through it. And they're always different because, again, it all depends, what the company's about or whatever. But if they say this may be disparaging to our employees and what we've been doing, I can see an argument both ways. I don't know how, because an arbitrator would probably have to figure that out. So,
wow,
are you saying that it's absolutely not disparaging?
I'm saying they're a bunch of crybabies and get over it.
Of course, that's the way it goes.
I mean, personally, and I think that I'm getting a little too much Schadenfreude out of it, truthfully. So it's bringing my lower base animal coming out. In fairness, I do enjoy seeing people squirm, and it's the funniest thing since 2016 in many ways.
Yeah,
just being honest, and yes, I know that it makes me slightly lesser. Please, people, forgive me. I'm not always evil.
You should have called me out. You should have said, "Hey, Nate, how do you feel about this?" Then I would have been laughing. But then you put it onto this whole legal aspect, like Nate the lawyer. Here's a legal question for you. So now I'm like thinking about it, like, oh my god, okay, I can't give an opinion. Let me just look at it just strictly from the law.
So now
you got me looking like this, like I'm so on the fence. But I'm like, this is how the law works. It's just it's disparaging on one end, but I can see how it's not. So have a jury figure it out.
I know what it is, Nate. You like the young Turks, and you're falling on that side naturally. I've just proven it. You are against Elon Musk, and you're against everything else. So now we're going to bring up another story for the evening because, you like complete sellout, has-been, freakazoid, obnoxious people. So we'll get right into Taylor Lorenz.
Tim Pool, CEO of the Daily Wire, took out a giant billboard in
New York Times
attempt to discredit my reporting on Libs of TikTok.
Now, by the way, in fairness, whose tweet did I grab? Hers.
You grabbed hers, yeah.
So give me a little more. And by the way, it is credited with, if you look up in the top right, by the Libs of TikTok, who were saying, "Cry more, Taylor. You actually discredited yourself all on your own." Now, Taylor.
So she doxed Libs of TikTok, right?
Well, actually, okay, this is another argument. This is why you're on. We got an argument. We've got a tradition here. I was saying she doxed Libs of TikTok, and this is the justification. It's Tim Pool and everybody else. But I actually kind of got into a little argument with Viva Fry about it earlier offline. She wrote the article and posted a link to the Libs of TikTok with her identity and real estate license, which is where she lives.
Okay.
And essentially, if you click the link, she's fully identified. Who she was, who she worked for, her company. It was her own company. Mm-hmm. Where it was, the address, and everything else. So it's complete doxing.
Okay.
Now, David Viva is saying that that's not technically doxing necessarily, but it's amplifying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that it is establishing the identity of the person, where they are, and the part that both David and I agree with is, let me go ahead and play you one of his tweets, because this is essentially the bottom line of where we are going, and hopefully everybody can hear this. Do I have it up on the screen? I have a habit of going to share and then starting to play something in the background nobody can hear. It's really sad. But
on you will be used by the worst people on the internet to destroy your life.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it.
It's so isolating and terrifying. It's horrifying. I'm so sorry. It's overwhelming. It's really hard.
Who is
you
this?
feel like
Libs of
any
TikTok?
little piece of
no, this is Taylor. This is Taylor Lorenz. This is the one. And okay, this is why I'm finishing with that. This is the one,
hell?
Argument or otherwise. She's talking about her haters and people who are harassing her and how hard it is for her to get along, as you saw. And I know I'm not as extreme as she is, but I'm just trying to, demonstrate a point. For a female and a reporter and all of that, who identified Libs of TikTok, specifically a female, and put in the exact same position. So there's actually two elements of the argument here.
That's true.
One is, I think it was a doxing because it did identify her, how to target her directly.
Okay.
He's saying that not necessarily, because maybe it's a bit, stating somebody's business or something isn't necessarily doxing them. I don't know. Ask Nathan DeBruin if it's doxing or not, because he was harassed at his workplace with Kyle Rittenhouse. I think it's kind of not cool. But I'm going to say, but then the second part. So that's the first, and we'll go over to that in a minute. The second part I'm saying is, whichever side you come down on, she's a freaking hypocrite and obnoxious, because she's crying about it right there. So it's on you.
Oof, there's a lot there. So for the doxing, I if a CEO of a company, I say the company is here. Is that
it's a small real estate
versus,
agency? It's her house.
Versus saying, but if the real estate agency is her house.
Correct. That's her home. Right. It's her personal, her phone number, everything.
That's doxing. They doxed her. That's it. Yeah. So if it's personal identifiable information, it's a total dox. Yes. So
now,
everything
could it
else you
be
said,
argued that they didn't know that?
No,
Could it be
no,
argued it's a business they didn't know that, or was it their responsibility to double check and make sure it wasn't?
It was their responsibility, and especially someone who's working for the Washington Post. So yeah, it's a total dox.
And she's a New Yorker, so you know New York laws.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, it's not illegal to dox someone, but she's doxed. She doxed. It's a dox. It's a full dox. Like I thought it was like, she had a company and it's a personal thing, and then that's they'll split. But if they're the same, and this person didn't even check it out, yeah, it's a dox.
All right, and that's been my argument on, and thus that's why you have that Times Square ad taken out by Tim Pool.
And what does it say?
Hold on, I will share it again because it's good material. I really don't like Taylor Lorenz. I don't like her ilk. But this is what it said, and I think it is perfectly fair as an ad. Taylor Lorenz doxed libs of TikTok. That's the whole ad.
But it's true that she did.
She did. Did it do anything? Did it attack her directly? Or did it make a truthful statement? I think it's great.
Yeah. It's I think it's rich people playing rich people games.
Okay, yes, it is. But you know what?
Yeah.
It's not like Taylor Lorenz. This is the first time. Okay, have you heard of Mr. Beast?
Yes, I've heard.
Okay, I'm going to point something out to you. This is May 27th, 2018. I don't know if you know about this. The popular YouTube philanthropist, Mr. Beast, has built his image on being a nice guy, but has a history of using homophobic slurs. Taylor Lorenz reports. This is 2018. Now, popular YouTuber, Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
What could be wrong with her statement there? What could be wrong with this article?
It's built. He's a nice guy, but what did it say? He's used homophobic slurs in the past.
Yeah, so he has a history of homophobic slurs.
So, is that defamatory? Like, is that true? Has he used them before?
I'm going to tell you the overall thing that's a big problem.
Tell me, because
16 years old.
Oh yeah, it's a big problem. That's ridiculous. And that article, if he was
She's
16 years
picking on a 16-year-old YouTuber, and that's disgusting.
Hold on.
I don't care where you are.
If he's 16, why
2018.
why would they allow her to write that article? That article is ridiculous then.
Well, the Atlantic did. By the way, she's working for the Washington Post. That was the Atlantic in 2018. She was at the New York Times, and she is sued by David's guest tonight.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know that? Okay. Yeah, because Taylor Lorenz. And
she's crazy.
Hold on. This is this person, which I have very bad, annoying things to say. This is her at New York Times. So Atlantic to New York Times. So what is she doing here? She's suing David's guest from tonight, Adriana, or how do you say that? I don't know how to say it. Something Jacob. She's like a TikTok agent. Like a lot of influencers work under her, or whatever. She went after her. Taylor Lorenz has a habit of going after anybody who's an influencer, whatever. Sued for defamation here, New York Times. She is gone from the New York Times to Washington Post. So we're talking 2018 to now 2022. New York Times, Atlantic, New York Times, Washington Post. Do you see a change in behavior here? The most recent things within a month, she's doxing somebody and crying that people are criticizing her.
The doxing is bad. Yeah, this woman's got issues. She's not someone I'm calling to dinner. But I will say this. I hate saying this, but I need to read the documents too on some of this stuff because I was fooled with Rittenhouse at the beginning. I was fooled with what's the name? What's the other one? Ahmaud Arbery. I thought he was just a jogger at the start of it, and then find out things are a little bit more complicated than that. So I would
Okay,
like
well-
to see that. I'd like to see that defamation suit because a lot of those defamation suits don't pan out.
Okay,
But
well,
from
I
what you showed
simplified
me-
it with Jimmy Donaldson, 16 years old. Work with me.
I
Where'd he go?
think the two things that you've shown me are disgusting, and it seems like either she's extremely sloppy because she doesn't go to that next. Because any reporter should say the guy's 16 years old. Really? Like what? Like really? What he was saying this stuff when he's 13? Like come on, really? I think that's ridiculous, and I also think she definitely doxes women. I got to talk to Viva because I don't think, and I think if that's a very horrible pattern of behavior, and the fact that she's moving around so much too also means something to me. Too.
Oh yeah. She's a hot potato, and she's chasing controversy like crazy. She went after Jimmy Donaldson in 2021 too. Okay, so this person is on a mission. She's an activist, not necessarily a reporter, in my opinion. See how I did that? Does that help with defamation?
It does. It helps a little, as long as it's your opinion, and it is an opinion.
I just stated it. All right. Simple claims he did the billboard because the WAPO and Lorenz denied doxing, which is true. They both denied it, but he had the archive showing that it was put up there in that manner. Okay, Rolf Peterson, thank you so much. Okay, maybe. Oh, come on now, Rolf, you're disappointing me. If your company's address is a matter of public record, well, that's where Nate was saying that doxing isn't illegal, but it is wrong. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, doxing is not illegal. It's not because it's a free speech issue because the freedom of speech allows you to say true things, and who you are and where you live is something that's true. So you can't get them on defamation. You could get somebody on stalking or something like that, but you'd have to have some pattern. So if somebody just randomly puts your stuff out there, it's really not illegal. But
what if it's public
all
record,
these platforms,
especially?
but all these platforms though, it's against their terms of service. So she should be off. Now this is where I think I'm different than Eric, because I would say the fact that she put Libs and TikTok personalized information out there, she shouldn't be able to go on Twitter, right? She shouldn't be able to do all. She should be off of all these platforms because that's what they say. You dox somebody, and their doxing thing is even stronger than what Eric's saying, because their thing is if you point to something, then somebody can find it, right? And she didn't do that. She actually linked it in that. So I think this is obviously a liberal bias in the sense of she's not being held accountable for the dox.
No, they're doubling down on it. Okay, so I'm going to go another one, Nate. Are you glad you came? It's like a game show. Eric's going to throw garbage at you all evening. All right. This is one that's different, and I'm not sure what to think. Did you know that Alec Baldwin, the Rust case, that the Santa Fe Sheriff's Department did a complete data dump?
Yes.
And I mean, a dump.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It may be the biggest dump in history because it is. Holy cow.
Well, no, it can't be because the Panama Papers were like 1.2 billion.
Yeah, but they keep going and going and going. This is, just like initial. And then, but anyway, it's, I don't know. Panama Papers, I probably could fit under 100 plus gigabytes.
That's true.
Which I can't do here. With all the video interviews, pop footage. Let me put it this way. Hannah's texts alone are 1,400 pages.
Damn.
On that note, Hannah Reed.
Damn.
Here's a text that was put out. I have blurred out the information because I don't dox, Nate.
You're a good man.
I don't believe in it. But the name Jason Bowles is her lawyer. This is public record, and he is in the press all the time talking about her. That's fine. Correct?
You just doxed that man. I don't know who that guy. I'm just messing with you. Yeah, you're right.
All right, good. The bottom line is this. Above his name, what I have blurred out is his phone number. That's not cool. That's doxing to me because they just put it out there. But even more so, this is a text from Hannah Reed, who is his client, to her lawyer from her phone that has been released to the entire public to see. Now, I hear things all the time, and maybe I'm dumb, but I always hear about attorney, client, communication, privilege,
Yeah.
How is this supporting that? Help me out, because this is literally posting it to the entire world.
Well, I'm surprised. I'm surprised they got it, number one, because you can't even. Yeah, I don't even know how to get. Well, they subpoenaed probably the phone company, and
I think she handed the phone over.
Maybe. All right. So
I think they asked for her
over,
phone and she gave it to him.
And then they just did a dump for messages.
But then they released it to the world.
But would they have known that this was her? Well, two things. Number one, would they have known that it was the attorney's phone number? I don't even know.
Well, I'll tell you what. His name's on it.
That's true too. Yeah.
He's representing her. The incident happened October 21st, 2021. It is now April 27th, 2022. He's appeared on Good Morning America 2020, multiple news sources. He's represented her and talked to the police or the sheriff's department on hand. At some point, does somebody know he's her damn lawyer?
I suspect so. May not be the person who's doing the warrant, but
this isn't a warrant. This is a dump. This is everything they collected. They just
put it all. They may not have gotten it from the warrant, yeah.
And what I'm saying, there is no warrant. I don't think there's a warrant. I think that they said, "Give me your phone." Alec Baldwin, they had to chase him around with a warrant, but I'll go through there. I bet you his stuff's doxed too, which will be very interesting. There is a lot of doxing going on. I'm not going to go into details because that would be, to me, contributing to the situation.
Doxing, yeah.
So I'm not going to state any of it. It's just a giant problem, in my opinion.
Stay away from the light, Eric. Stay away from the light, brother.
Hey, I'm hanging out with my lawyer buddies, and I want to make sure that I'm on track here.
In my opinion, even though just to be, I want to be honest. Saying it's your opinion, it can save you, but it also doesn't save you all the time. Because if you're saying something that, it's contextualized, but generally you got to tell people it's my opinion. This is not a fact, but. So, because sometimes you can be sued for opinions, but rarely, though, extremely rare.
Okay, well, it's my opinion, and it may not be a fact, but if I were a betting man, where would that fall down?
If you're a betting man?
Yes, that I would give the probability that it's wrong. Now, is that stating that's a fact?
No. No.
Okay, so whenever I say that it's my opinion, I'm saying that I would bet on it. But I don't always win all my bets.
You don't win the bets. Nice. I like it. Man. It's, I like the fact that you saw Libs of TikTok got 1.1 million new.
Yes, they're actually benefiting, or she is benefiting in many ways from that, I feel. But it's... it's disgusting. It really does bother me a great deal.
Because you're a good person. That's why it bothers anybody. You know what I'm saying? It just does. The fact that Libs of TikTok weren't doing anything crazy. The only thing they were doing was saying this is what these people are saying to everybody, right? It's just here it is, just put together. Here it is, right there. She didn't edit it. She just took what they were saying and correlated it so everybody can see what they were saying. And their own words in full context. And
which I think I think that's actually quite brilliant. Don't you?
Yes.
She did state an opinion. She said, "This is what you're seeing." So that is contextualizing it. Otherwise, it would be technically a copyright infringement, right? So she did change just enough to state that this is, she made a statement about it.
Yes.
And then it was under a minute. Now that's where it gets really tricky. I think that the only thing they could get her on is copyright, possibly. But I think of the Sargon of Akkad and the obviously case. I think she colored it enough because it wasn't taking away from the revenue. This is absolutely not an audience who has seen it. And that's part of the brilliance of it is what she did is she moved content from one echo chamber into another echo chamber.
Yeah.
Who would never have been exposed to it. And when they see it, they go, wait, what?
Yeah.
But that's it. She did not change it, editorialize it any further than to make a statement about it overall.
Here it is.
And it's their own bit, which they publicly put out there for free for anyone to see. So it's brilliant. I feel.
Yeah. I think I think it's one of the rare things where you take something and you don't have to do anything. It just play what the person says, and then it's weird because when you're in that echo chamber, you don't realize how crazy the things that you're saying are until you get out, or until somebody regularly hears it. That's how the cults happen, right?
Sure.
Nexium and all that stuff, because you're in there and you're saying, hey, this is reasonable, but then somebody else hears it that's not in that particular cult, and you're like, this is crazy. This is, telling my 2-year-old that they may be transgendered is crazy. Have you seen those new commercials for the transgendered kids, where my kid is transgendered and I'm proud or something like that? And
I'm proud, Nate. I'm proud to say I haven't seen them.
Yeah. It's they're interesting to say the least. I was going to say something else, but they're interesting to say the least.
Yeah. What is your opinion, Nate?
It's that I'll be candid. I'm of two minds, right? One side of me is saying, hey.
So are you a non-binary mind?
No, not binary mind. I am. I'm literally of two minds. No, you know what? I feel for if you are a parent and you really think your kid is going through something like this, I feel for you, right? But I think you got to live in reality sometimes, though. It's that if I have a 12-year-old who's going through these emotional roller coasters and just comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm really a boy," or I'm really a girl.
How old?
At 12, let's say at 12.
How about just wait? Just say, "Oh, really? Have you?
But don't
have you had funny feelings yet?" No, just
you got the puberty issue coming out, though. What do you do?
Right, and let's see what happens when that occurs. Once that occurs, let's see what happens, because let's say it's a daughter and they're just not in blah blah blah, and all of a sudden puberty hits, like, oh, he's kind of cute. Oh, there you go, problem solved. Half the time, procrastination could be your friend. That's my thought. Procrastination isn't always bad. Just wait. Just say, oh, interesting. Wow. I love you no matter what. Okay, that's nice. You don't give medications. Don't go to a doctor. Don't get just sit there, support, and wait. And you know what? There was a thing called a tomboy that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And guess what? Things just kind of even out. It's like the whole goth became emo and sadly trans in some ways. And I'm not talking about the hardcore, that are an adult and they actually, stick with it and all that. I'm talking about I feel like we'll call it trendy trans, because I feel it's that way. That's the new emo. Just wait. So instead of like piercings and black hair or whatever, it's going to a permanent change on the body. I would rather wait and see and just let it grow out. I had earrings when I was younger that I don't anymore. Okay, it's all sealed over. Whatever.
But the problem is that there's this. I don't know. It's like part of the problem is it's like I don't know. It's our society is going too crazy, because do you allow parents to do this to their children?
No.
I agree with that. But then does that
have you heard of
does that make us transphobic now because we said that? No, I agree.
Well,
I agree.
According to people, yes, but
it just doesn't make sense.
What's it? Munchausen's syndrome by proxy.
Oh,
is what I think of it as. Oh no, I'm being serious, because I feel like it's a trendy thing for parents to have a quote trans kid to show how much they're standing up for them and is so supportive. That Munchausen's syndrome by proxy is when a parent will actually injure their child or whatever, and then be known as a great caretaker and get all kinds of social benefits or whatever. Oh, you're an angel, you're loving, you're this, you're that. I feel like it's not completely dissimilar to that, and it's not about the kid then, it's about the parent. So I'm asking parents to please just chill. Please just wait, because it'll probably work itself out. And if you don't do any medication, all that, you're not going to cause any kind of permanent damage, because the medications and things change them at a core fundamental level.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate, because the argument,
because you're the devil.
Yeah, true. And the argument on the other side is what about the harm causing someone to stay in a body that they don't want to stay into?
Okay,
Because
do you
when
believe in
puberty-
playing
you got
God?
the puberty kick in. No, I don't. I'm just saying that's the argument going to be the side, right?
Of course.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm saying that, and you and I actually had this. Okay, we had a deep case, and you talked about it. What if somebody was born where, and I think you said there was an example out there of a person that was actually born a male, but they had some condition that prevented testosterone from being produced.
Yes.
And if you left them alone, they would
They
actually be essentially a female, even though they're
XY,
genetically a male or whatever.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
And my argument was, this is one case where I would say that doing a testosterone treatment would be fair because they were born with that actual gender, and you are doing nothing more than sustaining that actual sex, biological sex, and completing it. Or I'm okay if they did nothing and let them become a quote female. That is kind of where I stand. And I know it's a weird one. And that is an edge of an edge of an edge of an edge of an edge case.
But why not? All right. So in that case, all right, because these are real cases where you have an XY chromosome.
Yeah.
So let's say that. Why not just let nature take its course? If you don't do it,
well, that's why I said I would
argue.
argue. I could argue on both sides.
Yeah.
That's the one case where I would say nature said both. Nature didn't make up its mind on that one person. Nature said you're a male, and then nature said, but I'm going to screw you over to where you're not quite there yet. But so you can either finish the job and say, yeah, nature is a male and we agree and we go along with it, or you say, nature, you decided I do nothing. And that's where I said I'm okay with both. So
you're okay with, it's almost like you're saying you're okay with the dice being thrown, but you're not okay with the cognitive choice. So in other words,
correct.
if this happens, the dice is thrown, whatever happens, right? That's nothing you
as a child, yes.
Yes, but then if the parent makes the decision, you're not okay with that.
Unless in this case, because it is the child, and I'm going to say it, and it's not, I'm not trying to be an insult because it's confusing. Because the child could go either way technically. Technically it can be argued that the child is a male because it is a male, but it has a condition that prevents the male hormone from coming forth.
Correct.
And if let's say that instead of a male hormone, it was degenerative of a certain blood cell or something, would you give it a transfusion?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay giving blood, right? The child doesn't have enough blood. It's anemic. Give them more blood. I think most people would agree with that, right?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
And that's not changing their core. That's making them whole. There's a deficiency, and you're making them whole. Yeah, but
I agree.
I can also stand back and I can argue that God or whomever stated this is it. This is how the child is born. And the child is born with a testosterone, very unique, very specific. Do nothing. Okay. I can see that too. Child's not going to die because that's going to be a factor automatically.
Yeah.
So you got to get into the do no harm. And I think that's where you go into that whole Hippocratic Oath or whatever it's called, do no harm.
Yeah.
So what is the least harm? And that's why I said that is one time I will step back and I'll say,
you get to choose.
Yes. Because nature itself hadn't made up its mind. Both sides have been actually committed to.
But what makes it more moral that nature chooses that on essentially the dice roll than a parent saying, I think this is best for my child?
Because I don't believe in playing God. I literally do not. And that is I guess that's my biggest thing. I'm going to trust in nature. It's been there before us. We're all going to be gone. It'll still be there.
Amen to that, brother.
So, I try to not be, I can be pretty arrogant and annoying, but I try not to be so arrogant as to say that I'm God. I'm not Nate the lawyer or anything like that.
You're not playing God. No, I tend to agree with you. And it's interesting because I was arguing with somebody the other day about this. And one of the things they were saying was like, the feminists now are saying that this is an attack on women's rights, but they're saying, how come you never see these things go the opposite way? How come you never see a trans man win any amendment?
I say that all the time, dude. Because I call it doping. Yeah, why do I say doping? Because it's an advantage.
But not even that. It was kind of like, well, what about even without the trans piece of it? What about she brought up something very specific that I thought was interesting. She said, what all the advantages, let's say like home loans. Like right now, trans women are trying to get the not the minority business ones, but the gender-based ones, women-owned businesses.
Sure.
Right. There are grants specifically for women-owned businesses.
Sure.
But does a trans woman, should they qualify for that? And
you know what? I'm going to say no.
All those benefits.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say no. We're going to go to biology, similar to sports, because if you shift yourself to get into a position that's not natural, then I think you're gaming the system.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. I think
so, and again, I'm dumb and I'm very subtle on that, but it's like the same thing with sports. If you go male to female, it's the equivalent of doping. That's a cheat. If you cheat there. Now, I'm not going to stop you, but you shouldn't necessarily expect everything. We don't expect. I'm a male. I don't expect to be in the NBA. Okay, I'm fat and I don't jump very well. Sorry, but not everything works out right. Don't take away something from somebody else just because you see it as an opportunity to slide in front of them. And I do feel that way. I do feel that if you just say, hey, I'm uncomfortable in it. And by the way, I'd say 99% of the quote trans people, and I have actually had someone on, Hontus, and we've talked about it, and she's brought up good points. Like a very interesting point she brought up was there are some female to male trans scientists who suddenly got their papers published and did better when they became male. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
I don't know if it's conclusive or not, but you know what? I'll step back and I will say that's interesting. That's similar to like the Freakonomics studies and different things that say, hey, if your name is Jamala or whatever, or some quote known black quote sounding name, your job opportunities were lesser if you were just going blind on an application in many places. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I do want to hear more. I don't want to sit there and say nothing bad ever happens to anybody. Everything is perfect and correct. I'm open to that. But when it's some unknown quantity, like a trans athlete, where you have females, so you have a Title IX. The whole reason Title IX exists was to give opportunity to a class of people who were repressed. And you say, okay, I'm going to slide into there and I'm going to take something. Now we've got a problem. Now we've just said that Title IX is irrelevant. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it never goes the other direction.
Never.
I have never seen a female to male trans athlete take away a position from a male athlete. If that happened all the time, then I would just shut up and say, well, whatever. Whatever. Max Nixon. But it doesn't happen. And I am a believer that if everything always seems to error or result in one direction all the time, then we have an imbalance. We have a problem. I don't think that's a problem or, a crazy thought. It's the same reason that, Michael Moore can tell us about how wonderful Cuba was with all of its medical benefits and everything else. And all I can say is that Cuba, with all of its wonderful medical benefits and everything else, who are jumping on rafts and risking their lives and getting killed by sharks to get to the other country? Is it us trying to swim to Cuba, or is it Cubans trying to swim here? And when you answer that, I think you have your conclusion. If you say that communism and the Soviet Union was a wonderful thing, I would challenge you to look at the Berlin Wall and say, which side of the Berlin Wall had rifles pointing at their own people to keep them inside? Those same people who wanted to go to the other side. Was it West Germany and the West and capitalism, democracy, pick your term, or was it on the Soviet Union? And I think if people have to be held back by rifles in their locations, again, I'm dumb, but I would argue that maybe their life wasn't as good, and maybe their country plan wasn't as effective. Your thoughts?
If you got to be held back by rifles, stay in the country, right? Yeah, I think you're like that's the North Korean way of living. I agree. I think it's really tough. I think it's really tough over there.
But we get caught up in all this other. No, I mean, do you admit that we get caught up in all the noise of they have this system and that? And let's look at the overall. Listen, who wants to be where?
Listen, I think I think one thing we have to always remember is that living here in the United States, or even in the developed world or the Western world, you live in a totally different society than most of the people on the planet Earth. You lived in a privileged area, and it's funny. I used to tell people you haven't lived until you go into another country and see how they lived. Then you know how good you have it in the United States. The streets are literally paved with gold, and what I mean by paved with gold, it's paved with opportunity. It's weird because it's hard because I think most people in the United States have only been in the United States and have never really experienced what it really means to be poor and not have the social structure that we have here in the United States and how good we have it. And you're right. I think it's like you're living in heaven and wondering, well, how the hell, is hell really such a bad place? I've got all this heaven I'm in heaven 24 hours a day. Let me just try something.
It's boring, Nate. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
All this damn opportunity. God, can I get a little bit less opportunity? I'm just sick of opportunity. I hate to quote Trump, but it almost is that whole thing of you're going to get sick of winning.
Yeah. But that's why a lot of these want to be communists, want to be socialists. They don't. I don't think they really understand what that really means and what those consequences are. Go to Venezuela, for instance, if you really want to want socialism. You see what they're going through, and that's and that's just because we know it doesn't work, and we know, to be honest with you, strict unbridled capitalism doesn't work either. There's a mixture. Capitalism does work, and there's a little when I say socialism, and I say America has some socialist principles,
of course.
Well, not even universal education. That's
school.
Socialism. Yeah, school. The police department, fire department,
Social Security. It's called Social Security. Yeah. And I don't agree with some of it, but either way, we can fight that one out another time. But yes.
But the fundamental of the business model is a capitalist society based on a republic. Not even democracy, based on
correct, which is a big difference. You don't want a democracy. Yeah. They were terrified of democracy. The founding fathers, because they did not want mob rule. Mob rule is a democracy. Everybody, homework assignment: watch To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah, and it's a tyranny of the majority. That's what they literally call democracy, tyranny of the majority. But that's why we have the system we have now. Which again, I think the founding fathers were right, because if it's just whoever has the most votes, people will vote in anything. People will vote in anything, and we've seen.
That's why you have an electoral college. People want to get rid of this. Like, no. There's a reason for that, because people can get in a fever over something or whatever it is and make some poor decisions, and the added knowledge of the electoral college where they can moralistically turn their back. It actually is built into the system, and people don't realize it.
Yeah, but I still think the electoral college has some issues with it.
Everything has issues.
Yeah, but I just think the level of representation it gives to smaller states is just kind of insane.
That's the point.
Well, I don't know.
Here's the funny part. Okay, and we won't go deep into it, but look at our country, and it's spooky if you think about it, because if you just look at it by color, it is red with little blue spotches in high population places. And that's why we have this crazy situation. Because if you look at the spread, like if we're going to, let's do it by landmass. Let's ignore population and just say, by landmass, which party has the vast majority? It's going to be the right way, the Republicans, right?
Yes. Who owns most of the land? I agree
or represent it, because they don't own all the property.
But I understand, represent most of the land.
So that's where it gets really, really weird. And part of the reason for that representation is because you can't have, like they have in Canada, and David will have to agree with it, you have quite literally a situation where you have the population centers ruling over the smaller areas who are their bank account. Alberta, Canada is where they make all their money from their oil and everything, all the natural assets. And guess what? Quebec lives off of that.
But the two things. One, I've always thought laws and governments were for people, not for land is a subset of that. But people govern people, and that type of thing. So it's just to say, to give land ownership, that representation to be able to make law, equivalent to making laws. I'm not too fond of that, but I am fond of
right. No, but that's what I'm saying. It's a balance.
But I'm saying the way the United States is now, and the reason why it's like this, from my perspective, is that most people don't realize that each state in the Union was actually an independent country. That's
Thank you.
The United States.
And that's why I told you that it was legal for them to secede from the nation, which is, by the way, still controversial, and they did get brought up in Beaver and Barnes. But yes, it was a confederation of the states that rolled into it.
Yeah, I remember. Well, it was a perpetual use of whatever. But
it was permanent union after the Civil War, pre-Civil War, and this is the problem. But anyway, actually, Barnes said that both sides have a huge argument, so he did not settle. It was very interesting.
I think both sides do have the argument because. Before the war, it was what is this? It was like the issue, and that was the issue we had the war for. So whoever won the war was just going to be right.
And then that's settled.
But that's every war. That's if every war goes to the point where we got an issue.
But here's how you know that I'm right. Here's how you know that I'm right, Nate. The war won, so might made right there. But yes. Jefferson Davis was never tried for treason.
He was pardoned. Everybody was pardoned.
No. He was never tried for treason. People were pardoned later. He was never tried. He was locked up for a while, but he was never tried. And the reason why he wasn't tried is because he might have been acquitted, which would have sent the whole Civil War into a flurry. There's a whole book on it. So I challenge you to read it.
Didn't Johnson pardon the Confederacy?
Pardon the people. That wasn't the Confederacy.
President Johnson pardoned the whole Confederacy. It was a famous. Then the reason why, well, again, maybe I have to look it up.
Yeah, but go ahead and look it up because it was a question. He was locked up to be tried, but it went around and around and around. They finally said, we better not with him, because again, that would have put a case, the whole deal, and you don't want to bring that up.
Well, no, I'm agreeing with you that the specifics that you're saying I'm agreeing with, but the way I've always understood it, there was a major Supreme Court issue with pardons, and this is the reason why I'm bringing this up, is that does the pardon have to can the president only pardon one person at a time, or can he pardon groups of people? And the Supreme Court said he can pardon groups of people, and Johnson and as an example, Johnson pardoned the Confederacy all in one. Like, so he couldn't do it for each individual soldier because it's thousands of soldiers. It took him years, but he just said, "I'll do it for," and that was allowed. So I know the Confederacy was pardoned, but now I don't know if that's true, then all of them committed treason, because that's what happened.
Well, you see, here's the crazy argument, Nate. Nobody committed treason, and the reason why you can't commit treason if you're not a member of the country. So if you agree that the secession is possible, then they were not a member of the United States. So you can't commit treason against a country you're not part of. That's just a fact.
Exactly.
Anyway,
I agree.
Britt Cormier has a super chat. I definitely want to acknowledge it. They're saying you're right, Nate. They agree with you. Until I spent time in the third world, I really didn't understand what we have in the U.S. Spent some time in the developing world as part of the military. You have not seen poor until you've seen third world poor.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
That's amen to that.
But anyway, you know what? On a happy note, it's been a heavy evening. We've talked from Elon Musk to the Civil War. Is that range?
That is a lot. That is a lot of range. I got kids to put to bed. Well, actually, not there.
That's another kind of war.
I know. I saw somebody running around the house. I'm like, it should be in bed. But no, I'm tired now. I'm like so out of it. It's just crazy. It's just so much work. I don't know how Alita does it with the goddamn Johnny Depp trial. That's just insane.
Well, she's got one thing to focus on. That probably helps a little bit on that. I don't know. But Nate, everybody can find you at Nate the Lawyer, and they can actually kind of find me occasionally on Nate the Lawyer. We're sort of doing some stuff together.
Yes.
I don't know if
yes,
there's
yes.
going to be some videos coming out on that or not, or what's going on.
Yeah, hopefully by the end of this week and by the beginning of next we'll have actually our first 2 videos. Hopefully we'll be working on the one this week. But so next week we should have like 2 or 3 videos out. I mean, got some good stuff
Cool.
coming up. So
And we got
hopefully don't forget to see us on Sunday. No holds barred.
No holds barred at on structure.locals.com. Follow us both on Twitter. He's Nate the Lawyer. I'm Hunley Eric, and Elon Musk has bought it. We're hoping to encourage free speech. Growing the platform right now will encourage the idea of free speech. Everybody's seeing that, and I think that's helpful for everyone. So until next time, folks, see ya.